gave them the time to prepare the bridgehead. After that, there would be no looking back. On shore, a welcome hint of civilization, with Royal Marines digging in to defend it. At every new position during the advance across the islands, their first task would be to carve their own protection from the enemy and the cold out of the soft, peaty soil. Occasionally, if you were lucky, someone else did it for you. Not many people here to hitch a lift with, but those around were happy to lend a hand, even if it meant helping to move loads of ammunition. Confidence grew by the hour, as they were left to build their defenses undisturbed. Many of these men were to go for weeks with only one change of clothing. But they shaved where and when they could, and hadn't yet got fed up with the near constant diet of dehydrated chicken supreme. And the question in everyone's mind, just when would the Argentine Air Force come to challenge their defenses? They would not have long to wait. Just 9 hours after Britain went back on the Falklands, Argentine Skyhawks, Dagger and Mirage jets launched 3 airstrikes. From mainland bases at Rio Gallegos and Comodoro Rivadavia, they came in waves towards the Falklands, no fewer than 72 sorties. A mysterious British helicopter crash in nearby Chile fueled reports that SAS men were in Argentina watching these bases to give the task force a few vital minutes' notice of air attacks. Despite this, the Argentines were to sink HMS Ardent and damage 4 other British warships. Out on Hermes and Invincible, the Harriers were scrambled. They would shoot down half the planes thrown against them that day, 14 in all, along with 4 helicopters and 2 Pucaras. The Rapier missile system on shore was another success story of the war.
There's an air battle going on to the north. Air battle to the north.
Second radar 50 miles west. I say again, the first radar 40 miles west. The second radar 50 miles west. Out.
Two Skyhawks were among the first to get past the Harriers and swoop in on British positions and ships in San Carlos water. The hills that surrounded San Carlos made it impossible for the Argentine jets to use the Exocet missile, which homes in by radar on the biggest object around. That was one reason San Carlos was chosen for the landing. But it didn't stop the bombs and other missiles which came in thick and fast. One missile heading directly for Canberra was intercepted just in time. To drop their bombs, the incoming planes were having to run a barrage of flak and small arms fire put up from sea and shore. Plymouth and Antrim were slightly damaged. Canberra, the biggest and most attractive target around, somehow escaped. Several frigates had close shaves too. As the last Mirage afterburned its way across the sky, the British forces paused to count the cost. The Marines captured on the hillside an Argentine spotter they thought had been helping guide the planes in. Medical teams rushed to treat the surprisingly small number of casualties. Later, limping past to a more isolated part of the inlet, came HMS Antelope, a bomb disposal officer trying to defuse an unexploded bomb which had lodged in her engine room. That night, as he worked, it suddenly blew up. Their ship ripped open from engine room to funnel. The crew gathered at the stern to await rescue. The fire spread rapidly. Helicopters scoured the water in case anyone had been thrown in by the blast. One crewman was killed and 5 injured. Exploding ammunition fed the fire. The crew had no option but to abandon ship. Later that night, the main missile magazine exploded. Daylight found the Antelope still afloat, the fire dying away. But her back was nearly broken, and when the sea rushed in to quench the last flames, she split in two and sank. Hardly had she gone when the Argentines resumed their attacks on the anchorage. Fearless had many a close call. Not surprisingly, the British troops called San Carlos Water Bomb Alley. The Argentine pilots had a name for it too, Death Valley. More than 80 of the aircraft they threw against the task force did not return. Sometimes the attacks came so suddenly that passing helicopters had to take shelter in a fold in the ground. A Sea-Cat missile from Fearless hunted its prey. Boats were launched to rescue an Argentine pilot who bailed out into San Carlos Water. On the ship that shot him down, the men he'd tried to bomb stood guard as a medical team was summoned onto the deck. His leg was badly broken. He would never fly a military plane again. But unlike many of his colleagues, at least he was alive. British sailors were astounded that so many of the Argentine bombs that hit their ships did not explode, and angry that news of this should have been revealed in some newspapers, thus alerting the Argentines to the problem. The landing ship Sir Lancelot was towed to a remote anchorage while one such bomb lying alongside 200 tons of ammunition was defused. In another part of the anchorage, Sir Galahad too had an unexploded bomb on board. If all the bombs that hit had gone off, it would have dangerously weakened the defenses of the task force. To add to the problems, HMS Argonaut, undergoing repairs from an earlier attack, suddenly caught fire again, and that had to be dealt with. Argentina had earlier marked its National Day, May the 25th, by attacking and sinking the destroyer HMS Coventry, killing 21 sailors and injuring 23. An hour later, 9 died on the Atlantic conveyor when an Exocet missile bound straight for Hermes was diverted and plunged into the container ship. Her Harriers were all off, but 3 valuable Chinook helicopters went down with her. At Ajax Bay, an ammunition dump had been hit. British losses, though serious, were to remain far below Defence Chief's expectations.